We are talking Feud, Bette and Joan, episode 5, and the winner is Oscars 1963. Stay tuned.
This is like
It's so dramatic.
but watching you though, you're like,
Lisa's
I
like,
don't know the lines.
What is up, Feud fans? Welcome to the BHL Feud Aftershow. We are talking Feud, Bette and Joan, episode 5, and the winner is
Not Bette.
Ooh, yeah,
Not Bette. It wasn't you. They didn't. I know it was a burn like that cigarette when Joan stepped it out. It was so symbolic. She was like,
perfect. Love it.
it was so
Love
sad. This was a depressing episode. I was sad.
It was the opposite of lit.
Yeah.
It was
Right.
extinguished.
Right.
Not lit. I like that. I like that. It was extinguished.
Yeah, literally.
So to kick off the show by bringing everybody down, I'm Elena Jordan. What's up? You can find me on Twitter at Elena Jordan and on Instagram at that Elena Jordan girl. And today I am joined by 3 of my favorite people ever.
Ooh. Hey guys, what's up? I'm Nakia Monet, and you can find me on all social media at Kiki Boom Boom.
Hey Feud fans, I'm Lisa Mason Lee, and you can find me everywhere at Lisa Mason Lee.
And everyone, my name is Raquel Harris. You can find me on all social media at Raquel Harris TV.
Oh, so let's dive
Whoa.
right into this episode.
The Oscars.
Ooh.
Crazy.
Ooh, so we open up before we get our title sequence, and we get just a little montage. We know that the Oscars are coming. Betty's asked about it.
Yeah.
Point blank asked
I
about
love
the
it.
snub.
Describe a snub.
Right. Define snub.
It's an
love
honor
it.
just to be nominated again.
Right. And then they had named, they were like, oh, well, this is her 8th nominee, her something lost. And I'm like, gee.
11th or
Liz.
10th nomination, 8th loss.
I was like,
Hedda.
Hedda is crazy. But
Hedda with the math.
I'm telling you,
bringing
but
in that sass.
it pays to be friends with the media, though. That's what that showed. Like,
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally.
100%.
For
we
sure.
see, oh my gosh, it's just.
And it
So-
pays to be Joan Crawford.
right. Because her clout is just ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's cloud high. Like,
Not even the media. She had everyone in her pocket.
yeah.
That Rolodex.
Ooh.
Man.
It's a living legend calling you and coming to you. Everyone's like, sure, queen. Sure, whatever you want.
Bow
Take it.
down
But
to
see-
Joan
Must be nice.
Crawford.
If I was Geraldine, I'd been like, I'm sorry, girl, but that's cute and all, but I gotta show up. I'm sorry. I just didn't like how she, like when she would go to everyone to ask for a favor, she insulted them.
True Joan. That's what
That's how
I
Joan rolls.
But I
It's a
loved it.
narcissist tactic.
Such a narcissist because she couldn't just give them a compliment. She had to throw some dirt on them when she went to go
Yeah.
visit Anne, and she's like, "Great that you're performing in a half-empty house."
Yeah. I
And
don't
she
know
was
how
just
you
like-
theater girls do it every night.
And this is a living legend. If you're a young actress like this is a living legend who comes into you. So they know she's throwing the jabs, but they kind of have to take it. They're like, okay.
But see,
So-
that, go ahead. No, go.
I was just gonna say a little setup for the episode.
Yes.
Where we were left off last time is basically Betty's been nominated, Joan has not been.
Poor Joan.
And so Hedda, trying to make sure that Joan gets the accolades she feels she deserves, flat out says, "We are going to make sure that Bette does not walk off that stage with an Oscar because you're going to instead." So Joan has this whole plan basically to go, and this is based off of what is presumed to be a true story. People are
Right.
saying, you know,
Yeah.
there's no real hard evidence that this actually happened, that she campaigned. But Bette Davis has done many interviews where she said that Joan actively campaigned against her. So now we're getting to see.
Crazy.
That's insane.
These two ladies, Hedda and Joan, bad cop, good cop. And, you know, these are two powerful women. And Hedda's like, no. I got this. You're going to get that Oscar, even though you were not nominated. You take this list, I got this list, and we're going to ruin Bette Davis.
It's just so
I'm like,
sad,
oh,
like
that
how
sucks.
fast they come up with that. Like, oh yeah, let's. But like you had said while we were watching, it really shows how much hate that you have to have for someone, and it could have been anyone. Like it doesn't have to be Betty. It just so happened to be her because she was in direct competition with her at the time when her career started. So it just kind of, or not started, but when she like kind of started going downhill and Betty kind of came in. But I don't know. This was a very depressing episode for me to watch because it really showed, like Geraldine had mentioned, let's put her on stage to see what Hollywood has done to her. Because literally the only reason that she's like this is because, you know, she feels like she has to be on top all the time. And in my mind, I'm thinking, how can you possibly be just everlasting like that? Like,
right. And you know what's sad? Because Joan says to Hedda, she's like, the last bit of confidence that I did have left, it's like she took it from me. And it's like, and then Hedda's like, I sacrificed my career, my love life, kids. And it's like what I love, it's crazy because they're blaming someone else instead of taking the responsibility for themselves.
Deflection.
Right. You know, I'm like, you two are powerful women. But of course I understand because, like Olivia says, people are banking on their feud. The media, everyone else. So it sucks because you have these two powerful women who don't understand how big they are, and you have everyone in their ears, you know, and they want to bring down Bette Davis or whoever the next actress is going to be. And I found that kind of sad. I'm like, damn, Joan, I get it, but it's so sad that they wanted to campaign against Betty, who worked her ass off. But so did Joan. But respectfully, Bette Davis was nominated.
Absolutely. And it really goes to show like how feuds can really start. And now I feel like nowadays feuds are like just for publicity now. Whereas theirs was deeply rooted, where now it's like, oh, let's do this to make ratings and stuff like that. Because now social media is a part of our life, so we can use it to our advantage as entertainers. But in that sense, it's just like, why you have so much energy to do negative things, so why?
Well, seeing now too, I think with the show especially really highlighting the differences between social media when people are able to kind of speak for themselves versus back in the day when these actresses were kind of puppets in other people's and these producers' games. So and then also being, you know, pulled around in other directions from the media and then manipulating each other. Like you were saying, the scene with Geraldine, which, oh my gosh, her straight up saying, you know, when I was nominated for Mildred Pierce, I was way too nervous. After the whole setup of, do you know what you're going to wear? I do. The one thing I do have to say, though, because I love Edith Head. I'm the biggest Edith Head fan. So when she was like doing shout outs to Edith Head, I was like, yes.
The silver.
Yes. We'll get you to wear Edith Head. You know, the movie The Incredibles, Edna Mode is
my
based
favorite.
Entirely off of Edith Head. So I just loved it. I was just picturing like a little Edna Mode coming in and being like, oh, darling, this is how we'll dress you up.
It's amazing, to see those like shout out cameos are really nice. So I mean, it's really cool.
But I do love that. I love that she calls Geraldine, and you know, she's nervous because she's like, it's Joan fucking Crawford. A legend's calling me, and she builds her up, and then she tears her down little by little.
Like she's gonna help her by saying she'll get her in with Edith Head, but then really she's saying, you know, you're going to be so far out of your element. When I had Mildred Pierce, they just brought the Oscar to me. I was way too nervous. And it was so much nicer.
Yeah, it was so much more of an honor. Like, girl, it's just so...
Just say point blank. And I love that she does call her out,
She does.
Yeah, for sure.
She does. I love that. Because she's hip, you know. But she's like, oh, you can just stay in your one-bedroom apartment in New York.
I know. I was like,
the
my God.
The blows.
But I love that Geraldine was hip because she knew where this was coming from. But I think, you know, she respected this legend, someone who she probably looked up to and felt bad because everyone knew the story about Bette Davis and Joan Crawford not getting work. I personally think she was like, you know what? I'll let her have this one. I'm young. I'm still gonna get the role. She's probably not, even though she just insulted me like 10 times on the telephone.
Yeah,
I do
I'll let
have
her
to
have
say, too, one of the saddest things was when her actual emotional appeal when she's saying, you know, these people who are watching us at home, they depend on our little bit of glamour to
their ordinary lives. I'm like,
and she genuinely believes that.
Yeah.
Whereas Geraldine is like, well, that's sad.
She's like, if people are living their lives, like, I feel bad for them, like, off of my fashion, like.
As if Joan wasn't someone who was irrelevant at one point. That's the sad part, too. It's like, girl,
But you know, it's so crazy because you're right. Like, I feel like these Hollywood starlets back then, like, that's all they knew was Hollywood. And I think of like Judy Garland because like back then when she first started, Hollywood kind of manipulated her and she started taking the pills. And I just feel so bad because these women lived and they died. That's all they knew was Hollywood. Marilyn Monroe.
Everything.
You know, so when Joan says that, she really believes.
Yeah,
She
it's a
believes
sickness,
it.
really.
Which, I love that line when she comes back and, he's like, are you really going to let that show pony take present your Oscar? And she's like, Hollywood should see what they've done to her.
Yeah.
But that, again, was before social media. That was when the pressure to be so perfect was so high because it was just the day where people just assumed that nothing was retouched, that there wasn't special lighting elements, that you just were this untouchable star.
Yeah.
So but it was also really important to get your TV time, to get your minutes on the television.
Yeah.
But it was interesting how Joan didn't want to be a presenter in the first place. She thought she was too good, and then all of a sudden she realizes she needs to give it to Betty, but she also needs some TV time too. I mean, why not?
Of course. But I love how she goes into the Academy office and she's like, oh, and by the way, I would love a car, a chauffeur, hair, and makeup. He's like, we don't do that for presenters, but you'll do it for me.
With the smoke, but she'll do it for me.
Which is funny because that actually apparently never happened. That was just for the show. Wendell Corey, even though Wendell Corey did co-star in Harriet Craig with Joan in the 1950s, but there's no record that she actually demanded any of that stuff.
That was awesome stuff.
Okay, so wait, what about the green room?
Oh, yeah.
How true is that? Do you know?
That is kind of, I think, up to... There's been like different reports of it, but I think that's a little bit more accurate.
Which I hope so, because your friend should tell you, like, girl, you're better than this. But at the same time, I like that she was honest and she admitted, no, I'm actually not bigger than this. That was deep. That was very deep.
I felt really bad.
She admitted to it. She admitted that Hollywood has overtaken her and that, I really have nothing else but to bother someone else's life and to still, put myself out there to have that shine. And that's so unfortunate. But that was a very raw Joan in that moment. Like, you know what? Honestly,
I'm not bigger than this.
Yeah, I'm not. And that it's sad. It's so sad. And I know that there still has to be people in Hollywood to this day that feel that way, to where it's like, I need to fight for that relevance constantly.
Of course.
Yeah.
You can tell.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Social media, now with social media, you
like
definitely can tell.
Yeah.
I feel like with the Jessica Chastains, the Amy Adams, Scarlett Johansson, Charlize Theron, I feel like they're all competing all the time.
And I was thinking about that too. Like, I wonder what actresses are thinking while they watch this. Like, I mean, aside from them maybe having their own personal feuds amongst themselves, but what that type of pressure is to win and what that type of disappointment is when you lose your Oscar.
Right.
Because, like, that, I loved how they shot Betty's reaction, that heart, like, oh my gosh.
Scene.
I shed a tear.
I think this episode is going to get an Emmy.
I knew it was going to happen. I love Bette Davis. I know the history, but to see Susan Sarandon embody Bette Davis, because here you have a one in Joan trying to take her down, but this is, you guys know I love Bette Davis. This woman, to me, is one of the greatest actresses. This is a woman who perfected her craft. So you see, and she's nervous about going to the Oscars. You know?
As Betty.
You know what I'm saying? As Betty, and she's opening up to Olivia like, look,
I want it.
I want it. I want this. And she's talking to the Oscars like, I'm going to bring you home a baby brother. So when she lost and she took that gas, I got a little teary-eyed.
Yeah. The way that was shot, though, was just so...
perfect.
The cinematography this episode...
It was amazing.
Was spot on every shot.
That
one with the walkthrough was amazing.
The walkthrough, the one shot.
Because that one, the tracking, the very Aaron Sorkin-esque, like, one track, like, walk through the hallway.
That was
with
amazing.
her just owning the whole backstage area.
Her confidence just came through the screen.
It
just you go here and then pushing him into the press room and it over, like, Mamacita just
ready, because she knows what she's preparing to do. She's preparing to go watch Bette Davis lose.
So it's hello.
That was an awesome shot of her walking through the back, just like right here.
Shout out to the crew. The crew did amazing.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Shout out to the crew.
I think this episode, this will be the one that's nominated for an Emmy.
For sure.
This was a great, because both actresses did their thing, the way it was shot, the cinematography. I just loved her walking backstage and that one shot, and she's so confident.
And then into that gasp scene where we see the flashes, that like her holding her breath, Joan, that look, just the tears in her eyes looking away, and then the gasp into the bright lights, and then Joan with a line of real winners standing in front doing her whole photo shoot. They're like, Joan, can we get some with the other winners?
Right. It's like, it's all the night of the champions.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh no. Tonight's champion.
She just doesn't know when to stop.
No.
At all.
And I love that her friend was able to tell her, and she was like, nope, I'm not gonna. If you look at the real pictures, she looks amazing, by the way. They were so on point with Joan's outfit because everything was to a T. I was looking at the real pictures, and she's really standing there with the winners holding someone else's Oscar,
like, hey,
Yeah.
I win, and that was symbolic to that as well as
the category
winners
that she could have been nominated for,
but she won the battle.
The rules were that we weren't able to have somebody have
was it Patty
Duke
Yeah.
take the Oscar for her co-star because she was also nominated and ended up winning.
Yeah.
Which Joan then has to throw in a dadgum dig at the 17-year-old.
I'm like, the baby just wanted to bring she wanted to bring her puppy.
It's really not ladylike to bring a pet.
I'm like, how Wicked Witch of the West can you get that you're yelling at a little girl and her dog?
Yeah, she was like, she said, so you're the youngest actress to be nominated. That's what they say. And then you can tell that she's thinking about, like, what can I, attack her
Nowhere to go but down.
Right. Yeah. Nowhere to go but down. And I know she's just looking at her being 17, wow, this is your career starting already.
I will say this episode, because I feel like in past episodes, you really see the confidence of Bette Davis. I feel like this episode, it was like the Joan Crawford show.
Oh, yeah.
And even though it's really sad, and I know she's sad on the inside because of this Oscar nomination, you kind of just see this, confidence in this woman, because her goal is to take down Bette Davis. Whatever she's gonna do, Bette Davis is not gonna walk on that stage. Even though I'm not nominated and I'm not winning this Oscar, Bette Davis
I'm gonna win.
She's
still.
a bat out of hell.
Because
She's crazy.
She is yes.
Crazy. Who does that? Crazy.
The dark side has come out.
Right. It literally has to be a sickness, though.
It is.
Yeah.
Well, she's off a rocker, obviously.
Yeah.
She
for
did say
sure.
that.
How did she get this far? All the way
Nuts.
from lobbying to get up there and then making it to the end in the photos.
Because she's determined as hell. So that's
Yeah.
the one thing that is admirable about Joan is that they basically snubbed her completely, and where she could have said, like she did for Mildred Pierce, I faked pneumonia and stayed home. Instead, she said, I'm going to present, and I'm going to walk on stage in that category, because to her, winning just meant Bette losing. If
Pretty
Bette
much.
lost, then she won.
And that was kind
Yeah.
of like a slap to Hollywood's face too. Like, not only Bette Davis, but look, Hollywood, I'm still here. You're not gonna push me out.
Yeah.
You know.
I like that.
So I think she took that still
All
here.
control.
Yeah.
Look at me, and I have
control
silver
tower.
hair.
to flat out take over the green room and be like, move the centerpieces.
And then just the way, too,
like-
when the actor was like, Joan, where do I go? And she's like, there.
Yeah.
And then she knows he's like,
here.
look.
And then
I'm a pro.
basically, with the way that she did it too, it was like just feeding him to the wolves. You see like all the
Yes.
snaps and everything, and him completely like not prepping him, nothing.
Yeah.
Right.
She's over there.
She said, and then when to Geraldine, let's keep it down to 3 names. I was
Yes.
like, she is so, it's
Control.
But you know what, though? It's admirable because I do want to exude that type of confidence. The type of confidence that she has is like, I am yes. There is no, period. And I do like that about her. It's just the fact that she has to step on other people to get to get to that confidence. So, I mean.
She does say to Hedda, she's like, I don't know why, but I've been in competition with this woman forever.
Yeah.
And I don't know. Same thing with Bette. Betty's like, I don't know why she just pisses me off. I want to be nicer to her, but she just gets me upset.
She knows.
You know?
I'm like, just lock these two ladies in a room and make them talk it out.
Exactly.
But I don't
Come
think
on.
it'll ever be resolved because when you're dealing with someone who literally is insane, and I'm not even saying that to be funny. Like you can, from
That's
watching
true.
this, it's like there is no changing. There's no, I want to grow from this. And at the age that she is too, it's done. Like she's established who she is, and that's just what it is. Like, and that's what Hollywood knows too, and that's why they're like, look, you slept your way to the top. Like everything that they said about her, it's true. And Joan has to sleep with that at night, which we see at the end of the episode. It's like she knows the truths about her, and even though it hurts, but she's fine with it.
And she got back home and she sat on that bed, and it's like reality hit her like, I'm a sad old
then did you guys notice that they had that the new Oscar was super shiny next to her really
dull,
and it was 100% like, what
Betty's
up,
too.
old lady? You know what's funny about that too, though? I completely forgot. Ryan Murphy actually interviewed Bette Davis in the 80s and went to her house and saw her Oscar, and she said that really was the reason that she had rubbed the
she slept
gold
with him.
off. Yeah.
That's how you know someone's passionate about their craft. I'm sleeping with my Oscar.
Which is funny that they're like, she keeps it in the bathroom. That poor Oscar has to watch her go to the toilet. And I'm like, that woman is holding that Oscar and sobbing
talking
on
to it and
saying it's the perfect man, replacing it for
he doesn't talk back.
Oh my
Well,
gosh.
He listens. He's a great companion.
she's got a point.
Well, Lisa's like, you know what? She's right.
Right. I mean,
I agree.
I kid.
I do love that they showed the importance of basically the female friendships, like how one Hedda empowering Joan's insanity. And them going off the rails, but then also Olivia with Betty and showing the other side of it, where when you're supporting each other instead of ripping other people down
for negativity,
That's
though.
right, instead of mean girling it up and focusing all of your energy on being negative to somebody else.
Yeah.
Olivia,
Let's find a common enemy.
yeah,
That's really what it was. Is like, let's find someone we both can be upset about. Like, because then she was like,
enemy of my enemy
And like
my
her
friend.
sister, she had it bad with her sister.
Right.
A funny quote that I got from Olivia. She's
Your
like,
sister.
a feud implies continuing hustle between two parties. From
I
Olivia.
love-
That was the
yeah.
quote she said, because they asked her about her younger sister. But I love when she's talking to Betty on the phone, because she gives the interview this cute little fluffy answer about her sister, Joan Fontaine. And she says to Betty, she's like, do you know what my bitch sister? I'm like, whoa, 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 Olivia.
Yeah.
This is a different side.
Which that actually was a real thing. She
Really?
notoriously had a feud with her own sister. So that is kind of like, which I love my Joan's worse than your Joan.
Right.
That's still
actually, my
disturbing.
favorite, the collarbone story is true too, that she actually reported that. But my favorite, this is so messed up, in high school, she took out an ad in the school newspaper doing a fake obituary or a fake will, where she said, I bequeath to my sister the ability to win boys' hearts, which she does not have at present.
What? How do people hate people
And then she
so
took
much?
like her dad's surname so
Yeah.
that they wouldn't have the same last name. Because she was basically like F you, Joan Fontaine.
Oh my God. I love that she's like, I didn't ignore my sister. I just didn't see her standing behind me.
That's another feud that would be fun.
That'd be great to see, because in this episode you see Olivia kind of being like the person in the middle and the sweet person, the one who gives Betty the advice. So to kind of learn about her feud with her younger sister, I'm like, whoa, this kind of look at Olivia a little different.
But think about how they've been all talking about these two women on the side when asked about them. So it goes to show that women, or not necessarily women, but actresses in Hollywood will do what they need to do to get their press time, even if they have to shun someone else. So with when she said she had chose Olivia to stand beside her, and she was like, oh, you want someone who's not as important as Joan, pretty much, or can't compare to Joan.
Right.
So she knows, okay, I'm not that
I thought
important.
she was saying somebody that is as comparable. Like she was saying, I need somebody of comparable stature to take me seriously. I need somebody who... Yeah, I think she was saying, like, since Joan isn't going to support me, I need somebody who's going to be comparable. But Olivia, like, was saying that she didn't consider her a threat because they both... But Olivia was she was held in high esteem at that point, too. Like, they were all blown away that she was flying back from Paris.
Right,
I love that she
To
was supporting
present
her.
the award. But really, she was saying, while I am going to present Best Picture, which Best Picture is the biggest award, so they give that to the biggest presenter.
Right.
So I think that was her basically saying, Joan came in and said, I'll either do director or Best Picture because those are the two biggest.
Right.
Joan
And
Crawford.
she says, well, Olivia gets Best Picture. So basically saying, here are the two
Biggest
big
stars.
women and
Biggest,
big
right.
presenters.
Okay.
But if Joan isn't going to stand by her side. Olivia is.
Right.
Here's who's presenting Best Picture.
Because I thought she was saying she's big, but she's not as big as Joan in the sense of Joan still has that clout. Joan has still has a history with Hollywood.
No, I think it was with the opposite, where she's saying basically the only way that I can fully be taken seriously is if I have another woman who is just as important
and
as
prominent.
Joan. Which again kind of shows the importance of women having each other's backs in this business.
Well, it's
but
all
then
a
it's
game.
also it is because they even talk about the competitive aspect of it, which is like she didn't consider me a threat, so we could be friends.
That's exactly.
That is ridiculous.
That's really, but see, and it also goes to show like women, like who they choose to be their friends too. Like, oh, I don't want an ugly friend. I want the most important friend, like, or the most beautiful friend. Like, people choose their friends based off really their own insecurities. I mean, not all the time. I'm not that girl, but a lot of women or just people in general. Like, I just don't. For me, this episode was just so much negative energy and so many I don't know, that I just couldn't imagine. It would probably make you'd have to just be fighting every single day. Like every single day.
Well, what's so crazy to me too is in this episode I think it really highlighted how, up until this point we've been seeing how they've been saying basically there can only be one.
Yeah.
Like they even say like in this town, like there can only be one mentality, which we still even see constantly, where there's like the one woman with a group of like Avengers mentality and everything.
This is very true.
But in this episode, we see that that's not true, and when they when they're not in competition because they don't see each other as threats, and they support each other, it empowers each other and makes them look even better.
As long as no one's in their way. Like, because, like, for instance, I forget the actress that Joan had visited, the second actress that she had visited who was in theater.
Anne Bancroft.
Okay.
Anne Bancroft,
and she was talking about someone else who was in competition with her or going up for the same award.
Patty Duke.
And she was like, oh, well, I heard her movie was something. And she was like, I heard it was stank. I heard that, too. And it's just like, it really just has
Shirley
to come
MacLaine.
down. It has to come down to a common
Shirley
enemy.
MacLaine and Two for the Seesaw.
Yeah, it really, I feel like every woman at that time in Hollywood was just frenemies. Like, let's see who we can take out at this point in time. Like, who's right up there right now to where we can knock her down so that I can get the shine next. Like, it's a lion's den to me. Like, I was,
But
I don't know.
Joan instigated that, though, because Joan's the one who brought up Joan is so shady.
Yeah.
But see, those feelings were still in her,
Of
though.
course.
So it's like, regardless if Joan is the one that has to bring it out of you, you shouldn't even let that be a character attribute that you have. Like, why are you so... If we're all in this together, we obviously all bring something different to the table. So there's really, in reality, there is room for everybody in the sense, like, I mean, it really comes down to hard work. So, I mean, if you are going to shoot for the stars, then, fall in there. So, I mean, I don't know. It was too much for me. This episode was just like, I don't even know what to think about. Like, I
love
don't.
that scene though, that with her and Anne, where we get to see the realness of her, where she's talking, and at first she's got her whole fake thing where she says, well, you could win this, and she's like, well, wouldn't that be something? And she's like, yeah, wouldn't it? Just very like to herself. But then when Anne asks her point blank, would that make you happy? And you just see that moment where she's desperately.
That's another sad moment when she said
God.
It is sad.
And I was just like, oh my gosh, Jessica Lange, you're
She's such a
acting,
great
rip my
actress,
heart
and
out.
this is why she was so great on American Horror Story. But I also love how Paul incorporates his American Horror Story peeps, and he recycles. And so shout out to Sarah Paulson who played Geraldine. I love her.
Oh my gosh.
Such a
It's
good
like
job.
I feel like Ryan Murphy has a family, and he, he brings them on it. So every time there's a new show that he produces, I always look out for one of them.
Yeah.
So I was happy to see her. I was like, oh hey girl.
Yeah,
That was pretty cool.
Sarah, and then just what she's an amazing actress herself.
Yeah.
She changes, like, I never see her as Sarah Paulson. I see her as every single character.
Yeah,
The same with
she's
like
great.
Johnny Depp. Every time I see him in a movie, I see Jack Sparrow, I see Edward Scissorhands, and that's something that I really, really find valuable in an actor. Is when I don't see you as this person, you completely embody the character and the story.
Right.
Jessica Lange.
Yes.
Sarah Paulson, like, the way her voice changed and it was high, I was like, Sarah.
And a lot of her
She's such a
really
great
cool
actress.
roles and a lot of the diversity.
Yeah.
Same with Jessica Lange
Yes.
was because of Ryan Murphy. So it's cool to see.
It's like he has his
how
babies that he.
incorporates-
Yeah,
And I love that
absolutely.
whole, like when OJ came up, he's like
Yes,
Sarah Paulson,
yes.
And if you're an American Horror Story fan, you was sad at first when Jessica Lange leaves because she's such a great person on the show. So to see them Ryan, bringing his peeps with him, I love that about
Which
him.
I think is
It's a
pretty
support system.
obvious that he's kind of showing too by demonstration, not just telling but showing that you can have people's backs in this
Heck
business,
yeah.
and you can be cool with each other, and you can all support each other, because we've seen Jessica Lange and Sarah Paulson
forever
both crushing it, like in Coven and everything too. So it's like,
I was gonna say, even just bringing back like the support system, I remember that from Adam Sandler, like having Rob Schneider on there, like his team, like, and I love that. I mean, it's like a group of friends. Like even Seth Rogen, he always
say the same thing.
I love that. I love the group of Hollywood friends where you see them in each other's projects, and you're like, okay, this group hangs out with each other. This group, and
absolutely.
it's
Same
super
with
dope to
Spike
see.
Lee.
Yeah.
Spike Lee, same way. It's
him and like Samuel L. Jackson and Quentin Tarantino also with Samuel L. Jackson. So I love that Ryan Murphy does that.
which I think just makes the end scene even more heart-wrenching, is seeing Joan all by herself.
Well, that's
in
what
this
you get,
big
Joan.
empty house that what she thought was her
sad.
winning.
And you lost this whole time.
Yeah.
I was like, boo. When I saw her sitting at her bed, I was like, that's what you get. Oh, well, you're sad. And it's sad, it's depressing, but as much as a Joan fan as I am, that's horrible. She was horrible.
But she was already lonely.
Yeah,
That's what led
that's
her
true.
to this. So she just went back to the loneliness.
She just
bored.
owned it. At least she, she even decked herself out in the all silver.
Oh, I loved that
Like the
montage.
sexy
Where they
place.
dumped the silver on her hair.
With the music, with the shaker sound, that
I
the
love
shaker music
that.
that went with the slow motion with the silver, I was like crushing.
I just
want to
have an entourage like that. Because when they came in and Mamacita was like, don't speak unless Joan speaks to you, I was like, man, can this one day goals like that to have just
Have a Mamacita.
Well, no, not Mamacita. I don't want to have someone like that. But I mean, yes, I do, because she's amazing. But at the same time, like an entourage that comes in, has your hair, makeup, just down to your nails. I was like,
But
oh
I
my
wouldn't
gosh.
watch people that felt like they couldn't talk to you.
No, that's far.
She's like, don't
But
speak until Joan speaks to you.
Sometimes though, I'm like that in Uber though, like Uber and Lyft.
I mean, now
I'm not gonna lie, that is me sometimes.
I'm big on that.
Are you a talker?
Or the nail
I'm
salon?
not a
What about
talker.
at the nail salon?
The nail salon. Oh, that's also another one. I'm a talker naturally. So when I get into an Uber and a Lyft, I sometimes want to not
You
talk.
started?
Yeah.
No, I'm tired. It's been a long day, and I know you
get
want to
it.
talk, but I don't want to talk.
Yeah.
But it's funny. I'm sorry.
I'm a simple
'Cause
writer.
I love
tweet about
that our day and age now is we are all able to sit here like we're going to the Oscars and be like, do you like to talk to your driver? Because I don't like to talk to my driver.
Okay.
They're annoying.
And that will be
Don't
me.
look at
like,
me.
Meanwhile,
just
I'm
don't.
like, I took a $3 Uber to the studio
Okay.
and felt super fancy.
See? And that's okay.
Right.
Lyft, we are with you. Nah, the other one's a little weird.
Hey.
Well, Lyft actually is. I took Lyft. I still always say Uber.
I'm
It's like
not
zero.
gonna lie.
It's
I
just,
still
it's
take
catchy.
Uber.
It's a
like when
household
you
name
say,
now.
yeah.
It's
like
you,
when you photocopy something, you
'Cause
say zero,
sometimes
or like
it-
Kleenex.
Yeah,
Right.
which
Yeah.
right,
Uber.
exactly, because a lot of people don't realize that it's just called tissue. It's not called Kleenex.
Yeah.
Because you say like, oh, can I have a
Right.
Kleenex? It's just tissue.
One of our viewers in the chat, I believe his name is Queese.
Hey.
Fun fact, Joan kept the Oscar for like a month, parading it around before she gave it back. I think that's who he's talking about.
What?
She did, however, present it at the on stage. She went to the play that the Mother Courage and Her Children.
Yeah.
And she did a whole big elaborate presentation on the stage. when she gave Anne her Oscar, finally, I guess.
I was
didn't even
wondering
know it
how
was
long
so
she
much
had that
longer.
Oscar
Yeah.
for. Like, did she
Yeah.
immediately take it back? Of course she
Right.
didn't have
I'll mail it to you, Jerry.
She's like, don't worry.
Yeah.
It'll get there eventually.
The fact
Yeah.
that people choose to not go to the Oscars is what's hilarious to me. Like, oh, I don't think I'm gonna attend this year.
Catherine Hepburn
Yeah, like it's so right.
Yeah.
in Connecticut.
She never goes. Like I'm like, and it's weird, and it also showed how small Hollywood was. The way that they were just calling each other up,
Yes.
like, yeah. So do you know, like, if what so and so's not gonna be there, or that this movie did terribly. Like, it's weird because Hollywood. I mean, and I'm sure we all have kind of noticed this too amongst ourselves. Hollywood really is small. It's not, you really can know someone super easily. Like, I mean, especially when you connect with people who are in the industry already,
Right.
you're just like, oh, you work there? Oh, I live in Hollywood. Oh, okay, Melrose. Yeah, like, it's crazy how small it actually is.
It's so big
Yes.
and yet so small.
It
It is
is.
weird. It's
Yeah.
like weirdly
Everyone knows
connected.
everyone.
Especially when you're in entertainment, you've either worked with someone who's worked with someone and you know.
Oh, yeah.
Because I worked on a few shows and people are like, oh yeah. And so it's
Yeah,
entertainment
yeah.
is
Yeah.
this small.
Yeah,
But
and
from the
it's
outside,
scary.
it looks so big, and that's why these women women were so obsessed.
It's so crazy too that the very first Oscars, like now it's such a huge deal.
Yeah.
The very first Oscars was in the basement of the Roosevelt.
Wow.
And they told everybody who won beforehand. Because they're like, let's get it and out of here.
Yeah.
They're like, let's get this over with. Now the
So
Oscars is
now
a thing. It's like a holiday.
Well, because for these people, like we see Joan, this is all she has.
Yeah.
The biggest night in Hollywood is the Oscars.
Yeah.
So this is the biggest night in their lives. This is the most important thing. Betty even talking about, sometimes I think back to that night when I won and the whole world stood up and applauded for me and I felt loved.
Yeah, that was
And
sad. And
like
she's
the
looking at her Oscar.
desperation.
I'm like,
And then
"Oh."
Olivia connecting and saying, somebody going into their second divorce, I completely understand. And it just makes you think, Joan, you have so much in common with this woman. You would understand more than anyone.
They would have been great friends, I think.
She's just a jerk.
They would have just talked and let the pettiness go and stop competing. And these men weren't being their puppeteers and putting the battery in their back, because that's what we know who kind of helped the media, the men at the top,
Yeah.
Jack.
There
Warner.
were friendly moments on the
Yes.
shoot, it seemed.
True. I felt like it would have went further if like someone didn't swoop in, because remember they were being friendly and Jack's like, no.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it sucks because I feel like they could have been friends.
I agree.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think it made for a great movie for them not to be.
This
Right.
whole time.
Exactly.
Yes.
And they hated each other even before the movie started, like before
Right.
and after the movie.
Right.
Which I'm hoping that the next episode, I'm not
man.
sure if, do we want to dive into
Yeah.
We can.
Yes.
Predictions?
Do it.
I'm hoping that the next episode is going to focus on the sequel that they were supposed to have. They were supposed to work together again on Hush Hush Sweet Charlotte.
Yeah.
Then Joan got fired. So I'm wondering if this is a little bit of the setup for the backlash where, she was even warned, if you walk out on this stage, if you make this petty move, everybody's going to know that it is you
You're
being
not going to get
petty.
a job anymore.
No
They're
one's
never
gonna
going to
wanna
work with you again.
Right, in the preview, I thought I heard Robert say if they the two of them sign on the dotted line,
Yes.
so maybe it was a contract for that.
Yeah.
For Hush Hush Sweet Charlotte.
That's actually great. I would love to see that in the next episode.
Hoping
Yeah.
that that's going to be the case, because I feel like at this point it's like, well, where else is
Where
it
else
gonna
do they go? Because then after that they split.
Down.
Yeah, because
Downhill.
we have 3 episodes left.
Yeah.
Wow, that went by super fast.
It really
fast.
did.
It's only
Now that I
3
think about it.
left.
Yeah. Oh, that's
No.
okay.
I'm guessing the last episode may be like once they're older, or like when Betty Davis does that interview with Barbara Walters, which is a very good.
maybe.
I'm wondering if that's where they're gonna take it.
I think there's going to be a spin-off.
Cool.
Someone's probably
Yeah.
going to start a movie or a show about Joan, I think, alone. I feel like it. I feel like that's,
a non-Ryan Murphy thing.
I mean, maybe Ryan wants to do that, but I
That'd be
mean,
awesome.
I think that eventually, like over time, because I think the show did so well, or it has done so
Right.
well, I do feel like they're going to start coming out with a few more Joan Crawford.
Well, I think
some
it'd be kind
content
of
with
cool
her.
because everyone knows her from Mommy Dearest.
Yeah.
And now everyone knows her from this plus Mommy Dearest.
Right.
So maybe somebody wants to do a biography where you can
Which
see
I would
a
love
different
to
side
see.
of Joan.
Yeah, I mean, just and on top of that, we haven't really dived into Mommy Dearest that much.
Right.
So I mean, we don't know like what has happened in regards to that. So I mean, I would love to see a Joan Crawford film come from this.
I wonder if we'll see some more Mommy Dearest in.
That's what I'm thinking
Some
too.
references,
Yeah.
Because but maybe they
Maybe
probably
the
don't
last
want to.
one?
Yeah.
That's what I'm thinking, because if they go to the 70s, maybe they'll skip
Well,
to
like
where
this
Right.
episode, I love
Yeah.
that we got to see Olivia both in the 70s and in the 60s, like
Yes.
exactly 10 years apart, where
Right.
she's being interviewed.
Exactly.
And then her. So maybe they will
maybe
go
they'll bring that in there.
a little bit to the future.
I feel like they
Right.
have to, because it's like Joan's like, it's Joan Crawford, and she has so much background in her history in Hollywood to where it's like there's so much to talk about with Joan. Whereas I mean, I would love to see a spinoff with Betty too, just because I don't know much about Betty, so I would love to learn more about her. Joan, like I'm obsessed,
Right.
but I think that there's gonna be, because Joan in this show, I feel like she does steal the show because she is the cause of most of the controversy. So I would love to kind of just follow her story a little bit longer.
Betty had the flashier character, but you were the one who.
For
That's a
real
great-
though, people.
I love that.
That's a great
Yeah,
quote,
I
great
mean
quote.
Joan, because it's Joan, because of her clout. Like there's no one else that they're like me. Immediately, like it's a snap of the fingers, and it's it. And no matter what, people are gonna bow down to Joan because it's Joan Crawford.
You
So
can't do this. Have a good night.
It's so like she's she's the queen of petty. Next to petty in the dictionary is Joan Crawford's
Joan Crawford.
I love the
Mommy
cigarette
Dearest.
crackles when they
yeah.
inhale. You hear it really crisp on the headphones.
They
So
suck
if
on
you
those
get a chance,
cigarettes.
wear the headphones and listen up.
Yeah.
I just love too that the first gasp with Betty and then the cigarette putting out where it literally was just Joan taking the breath right out, just knocking the wind right out of Betty.
That was so. that
gives
was
me
that was an
chills.
amazing moment.
This episode
Sad.
was so spot on.
And
This was so
come,
good.
How come Betty wasn't sitting in the audience? Why was she backstage?
That
Away, waiting
I think
for...
just for dramatic effect, because in actuality, when she was interviewed, she said that she was backstage. She,
Okay.
I think, had presented, or I'm not
Right.
sure, but she was in the green room watching on a monitor. But because I think it was a little bit more dramatic to have each each of the two women in the wings, and literally seeing Joan do her tour of the wings.
Oh,
Yeah.
Love that.
That's why
so
I don't.
sad.
I know a lot of people have issues with the show not being completely spot on, factually accurate.
But I
It
think-
doesn't bother me.
It doesn't
If
bother
It
me
bothers
either.
me. It bothers me a little bit, just a little bit.
But I feel like
No,
they've
if
been
it
like
has-
98% right,
It's
and
been close.
I feel like they did the 2% just for TV. But I feel like everything
Right.
else has been on point.
No, I mean, I live for facts. Like I'm a super like, okay, if that
Fact
didn't happen,
checker.
because you have a new generation also watching this too. So it's kind of like when you go to see Lion King. Sorry, another Lion King reference. When you go to see Lion King and we're all sitting in the audience and we're
Right.
like, oh, we saw this in '95, and these kids are watching it like with those new scenes, and they're like,
Right.
oh, that's been there the entire time. So
But I feel like
There's
that's
new
what,
scenes in Lion King?
there are new scenes in Lion King. I know.
Wow.
I went to go see Lion King 3D by myself. I was that chick.
But I
yes.
feel like they do that a lot with everything now, because you think about, like, say Disney movies, for instance. Some of these stories are like 300 years old, and they've made so many remakes. Peter
Yeah,
Pan.
yeah.
I remember they did the movie Hook with Robin Williams. So I feel like everything they do it to their liking, and
But
everything's
it's
not
kind
the
of
same.
different too, like when it's based on actual events. Like
Yeah.
people had a big problem with Pocahontas
Oh yeah.
because
It's not
they were
accurate.
Like, that's
Right.
Like that's a great story, but
a real
That's
story.
not. Yeah,
What
that's
happened.
not what happened. So it's kind of, I guess, but. To me, the details that are changed in this show
I think
are so subtle.
are small, even though it is kind of obvious that they're showing a little bit of a bias towards Betty.
Yeah,
It's
they
like,
are.
Okay, come on now, like.
Well,
Yeah,
I
they
mean,
are.
but then again, at the same time, Joan is literally still just very awful. So I mean, it's like, it's not, because you know, you have to come to a point where it's like, yeah, I mean, it sucks because Joan sucks. Like, it's like it sucks for her story because Joan,
Yeah.
you're a terrible person. Like, I can't make that up. Like, you did all of
But
those
she did
things.
have some redeeming qualities that are kind of, you know, skimmed over. It's the same thing when you watch like a reality TV
Yes.
show. Is it can be edited to make anybody the villain or
yeah.
anybody the good guy,
Yeah.
depending, because people are multifaceted. Like there's
Right.
not one dimension. There's nobody who's just completely a pile of garbage.
Right.
God, well, I mean,
Well, I don't know.
I did, but
can-
you can tell there's like a bias towards Betty Davis.
Yeah.
Which I love, but
you just like, I'm here for it. That's
I
fine.
love Betty. Who
I'm
doesn't
okay.
love, like she said, all the queens. Everyone's here for Betty Davis. But I think they're two great, legendary women.
Yeah.
And I just think it is sad because back then they had no idea how amazing they could have been together. And I feel like this episode was just super sad. And to see Joan go to the level that she went, and to have Hedda kind of spearhead this project, and Joan's now sitting home lonely. So
Yeah.
And I was never really a fan of Olivia de Havilland, but now I'm interested in seeing her pictures.
Yeah.
I know she did Romeo and Juliet.
I would love to see
So-
that. That is true. Catherine
been
Zeta-Jones
on-
has done an amazing job.
Yeah, she has.
I wanna
She's so
know-
fluttery.
Yeah, she's
Yeah.
amazing.
It's just like, oh.
She's so good. I still
Yeah.
can't believe the first episode when I didn't even know that was her.
I did. I'm
I
like,
feel like
who is
that happens all the time with her, though. Like, at least when I watch her in movies, I'm like, oh, that's,
Yeah, it took me a while. I'm
That's
like,
good.
wait,
It's a
Catherine Zeta-Jones.
transformation.
she
What?
can, yeah, she
Yeah,
can
she just
transform
physically
very, very
transforms
well.
herself.
She's, wow. Because I didn't know, honestly, like, the first couple episodes, I was like, oh. Oh.
Is that who that is?
Yeah,
I knew
exactly.
because I saw it at the credits that it popped up. I was like,
Oh.
go back and look.
See, because, yeah.
Now, I will say one thing that I do love about this show, though, is because it has gotten so much, you know, buzz and everything, and more people are really latching on to these ladies. I was at WonderCon this weekend, and I saw a Joan Crawford cosplayer with the sign that said no wire hangers.
That's
and I was like,
amazing. That's
Ooh,
amazing.
Halloween.
Wow.
2017 Halloween.
That's amazing. I think something like this is now bringing, the Joan Crawford and the Betty Davis back. So now you're gonna see the costumes, and I feel like you're gonna, like you said, more references about the women because
right, which is why I'm a stickler for facts, because I don't want people to be going around like, oh yeah, and I can't believe that female director, like she didn't get her stuff written, and it's like that actually.
But wait a minute.
Right, and
inspired by true events.
but I feel like the show is getting better and better every week,
man,
so I
it
cannot
is.
wait for next week. But in the meantime, where can we find more from you ladies?
Well, you can find me on all social media at Raquel Harris TV, and obviously my name is Raquel Harris.
Hey, I'm Lisa Mason Lee. You can find me everywhere at Lisa Mason Lee.
Hey guys, I'm Nakia Monet, and you can find me on all social media at Kiki Boom Boom.
And I'm Elena Jordan. You can find me on Twitter at Elena Jordan and on Instagram at That Elena Jordan Girl. And you can catch us all back here next week.
I'm excited.
Keeping that feud going.
Right,
Keeping it
and my
going.
birthday.
And make sure you jump in the live chat, guys.
Oh,
we
yeah.
love taking your questions and comments.
Thank you,
And
guys.
keep up with all of us also using that hashtag BHL Feud too.
Yes.
So see you guys next week.
Bye.
From executives Kevin Undergaro, Dario Kristen, Tiana Hobson, and the entire BHL staff, we would like to thank you for supporting Black Hollywood Live, the first online broadcast network dedicated to African American entertainment. For questions and comments, contact us. info@blackhollywoodlive.com. Like us on Facebook, tweet us, or Instagram us at BHL Online. And I am the official voice of Black Hollywood Live, Scipio. Instagram me at KingXOBay. Thanks for tuning in.
Hollywood redefined.
The views expressed here are those of the host only and do not necessarily reflect the views of BHL or its owners or principals.